Retail's probably last on the list.
That's probably the most efficient way to spend marketing dollars.
There has to be some give and take there.
Know what your creator model is, and then have the courage to say no to people that don't fit that.
If it doesn't feel natural, it's going to flop.
That's our pitch. So.
On today's episode of the podcast, Gary Garofalo, co-founder of LoudCrowd, joins me to talk about influencer marketing and how brands can essentially use a tool like what they provide to allow creators to send traffic to your website on Shopify to drive up conversion rates and really help you scale your affiliate program in a way that hasn't really been done before. Really enjoyed my conversation with Gary, and I think that there's a lot of great advice packaged up into this episode. So let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Gary. Super excited to have you on the show, man. Tell us who you are and what you do.
To introduce myself, I'm Gary Garofalo. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders here at LoudCrowd. We're a platform that helps brands and retailers really manage ambassador, affiliate, and influencer programs with a major focus on building shoppable creator experiences. And so our flagship product is what we call Ambassador Storefronts. It's a tool that allows creators to curate their own shoppable storefronts on a brand's e-com. You can just think about that like Amazon influencer storefronts for basically every brand in the world.
It's awesome, man. I really see this like shift in e-commerce right now. Like brands are moving a lot towards affiliate marketing and just anything else that works, right? Because like Facebook kind of sucks now. But what's your story? How did you get started in this? What ultimately led you to starting it?
To be totally honest, I would say at least the start of my career is a pretty boring and conventional story. I started my career in management consulting. So that model is basically you're flying around the country to random cities, middle of nowhere, working with clients and, basically joining the Million Mile Club and the, Marriott Rewards program and living your life on the road. So started my career there. The model with consulting firms is, you work 4 years for a firm. Typically, then you go to business school, then you come back for a couple of years. So that was my path. And then I had probably a couple of serendipitous moments, but the big one was I had a friend in my network when I was, kind of all ready to go to business school. I had a friend in my network reach out, and he connected me with someone in his network that was in Austin building a company and wanted to meet people with my background. Sat down, had coffee with him, probably an hour coffee or so. I might have gotten in 2 sentences. And I don't even really remember the substance of what he said, but I just remember in talking to him, I had never spoken with anyone in my life that was so passionate and driven about, what he was working on and the mission of his company. And I just remember immediately thinking, I've been in consulting for 4 years. I'm going to be in it, ostensibly for 4 more. I've never met anybody in this industry that speaks with this kind of passion and this kind of drive. So I immediately knew that, I wanted to be, kind of in that environment and part of that industry. I joined him. He was the chief strategy officer of a startup in Austin. So I joined him. I got to wear a lot of hats for a couple of years and really learn the software ropes. A couple of years after that, I started my first software company, and now I'm on number 2, and I'm lucky enough to be working with my best friend of 17 years, making this kind of a really fun journey. So that's the story, pretty conventional to start. And then I would say, it's been really software focused over the last 10 or so years.
That's awesome, man. Talk about right place, the right time.
Yeah. I think everybody has, a number of serendipitous moments, really, no matter, kind of where you end up in life. And, very, very fortunate to have, put myself in a good city and kind of surround myself with some really cool people to, allow me to kind of, get into something that I'm really passionate about.
So what's your opinion on the overall landscape of affiliate marketing with e-commerce? I know there's a lot of people like trying to like move that forward and create some really awesome things that kind of makes it less favorable for the influencer side of things. What's your opinion?
There's a lot of stuff going on in the industry. And I think, I would slightly kind of reframe the question as saying there's a few opposing forces. There's affiliate, there's e-com. And then I would say, there's influencer marketing as well, which, it's really hard to define all of those categories. You can go to an affiliate conference and an influencer conference and hear 7 different definitions of what the difference in the industries are and all those things. So it's kind of really hard to put your finger on all those things. I would say, there's a number of things happening in the, influencer and affiliate industry, if we're going to group those together. I think affiliate marketing has always been more aligned with e-commerce and performance marketing. Influencer marketing has always been kind of this new thing that's really important and really focused on how people shop now, which is, inspired by creators and other people. So I think there's ultimately going to be a reconciliation of, brands and, general marketing best practices demand that, we use kind of a performance marketing model and marketing dollars are spent efficiently. I think there's, kind of a reckoning that needs to happen with how traditional affiliate marketing works and how tools and processes were built in relation to, now the prevailing affiliates in the world are influencers, and they kind of demand a different toolkit process and all of those things. So I just think there's kind of a bunch of different markets converging right now, and there's going to be a lot of change over the next few years. And I think everybody on all sides, affiliate, influencer, e-com, just kind of, is in alignment that, you kind of have three things that are, over time going to combine to be one thing. And the question is, what is that one thing?
The gap is shortening between what separates an affiliate from an influencer, right? I think brands are kind of sick of paying on a per post basis, right? And they're more like, hey, we're struggling out here. It's tough out here. We're barely making ends meet. Like, let's come up with something that makes sense for both of us involved. And in some ways that is going to bring out some fakes, right? Like people that don't actually have a lot of influence over their audience, they're going to have a really hard time actually, pushing sales if they're only making money based on the sales that they're pushing to their audience, right?
There's a couple of just general market forces that are all really driven by the consumer. I think the consumer has ultimately in the last 10 years demanded that, they want to shop via people. And so that has really forced brands to invest tons and tons and tons of money into influencers, because that is probably, although measurement and, attribution to stand, that's probably the most efficient way to spend marketing dollars. But in that, it's really hard for brands to identify how to spend that money efficiently. And there's definitely been a lot of creators that are, so to speak, along for the ride. So, as all forces align, I believe, there's definitely going to be some creators that are adding less value than other creators. But generally speaking, the industry is going to be moving to a place where, more efficient dollars are being spent on influencer marketing. And that's actually a good thing for all parties involved.
Yeah. I mean, the creators that actually do a really good job creating content, and that content, being successful and driving purchases for the brands they work with, they're going to make a lot more money, right? There's no commission cap on that. They can push it as far as they can. And I've seen this concept floating around quite a bit recently, where, creators are kind of just, treating the brand as if it were their own, and they're creating content in some cases, even on their own, like separate, like branded Instagram or TikTok page, where you couldn't actually differentiate between if that's the actual brand or if there's a creator behind that content.
I think that addresses one of the core things that, has been evolving over the last few years, which is traditional influencer marketing was a very disjointed experience. And that's something that everybody's trying to solve right now. The traditional influencer model is, all right, find a brand creates a partnership with a creator is going to create content. And, generally what they're trying to do is drive traffic to, how that brand transacts, whether that's on their e-commerce or in a store. The problem with that experience for a consumer is that, you were inspired by, whatever creator, Alex Earl or whoever it is. And then, you're being shipped to a place to transact that actually has nothing to do with her. You're shopping, Revolve product categories, or you're in a store that doesn't really, speak to that individual's taste. And that's, a pretty poor disjointed funnel, if we're being honest. There's been a lot of ways that I would say the industries have evolved to address that. There's, kind of a new creator-led e-commerce experience that's being built in a variety of different ways. And it's really meant to kind of reduce that problem of, influencer marketing is a thing over here, e-commerce is a thing over here. And there's just two totally separate experiences for all that we're doing is trying to drive transactions with consumers. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. And each of those creators should really be treated as its own separate channel, right? And I think it's funny that you mentioned Alex Earl. I should have no idea who that is, but my wife talks about her all the time.
It's hysterical. I just got back from an influencer conference a month ago, and a lot of very, very impressive brands there and very impressive teams. But like, she was the de facto example for literally like even brands that haven't worked with her. Like, she is just kind of the shorthand for really fast growing up and coming creator nowadays. I must have heard her referenced 10 times in one day. It was nuts.
Wow. Yeah, that is crazy. So what are you seeing from your guys' point of view in terms of these creator-led experiences? How are you guys really approaching that, and what kind of success are you guys seeing?
Good question. So to go back to, first of all, what is a creator-led experience? I think that, it is kind of what affiliate influencer e-com is evolving into. And it basically means, people shop other people / creators instead of brands. And that is, really proving to be the predominant way that people want to shop now. So, consumers are choosing that as a better way to shop. And that's really what people are trying to build. There are three ways, at least that I identify with that. There's three ways that people really try to create that experience. One of them was, you guys had on your podcast, about a month ago, somebody that was talking about TikTok shops. So, you could have a creator-led e-com experience that is native to the social platforms. That would be an Instagram shop or a TikTok shop. Creator is going to curate, all their favorite products and try to sell it natively on the platform. So that's one. There's another type of creator-led e-com experience that is more third-party driven. And, the primary example of this would be LTK. You have a collection of creators, they might be creating on different platforms or natively on LTK, but really LTK is a third-party, creator shopping experience that ultimately, people shop there, then they're going to send them back to the brand's website. And then I would say the third way is really the way that LoudCrowd is pioneering. And that is a creator-led e-com experience, a shopping experience that is actually native on the brand's site. So, a creator can have their own storefront on the brand's site. And that's going to, radically raise the conversion rates that are happening and being driven by social. So I think there's kind of three ways of doing, this creator-led e-com experience. Ultimately the market, there's kind of tensions between all three of those ways, and there's different incentives for different parties to, prefer one way or the other. But I think in the end of the day, all three of those versions of the creator-led e-com experience are a significantly better consumer experience than traditional influencer marketing. So those are going to be prevailing over the next few years. And then really the market needs to decide, where do the conversions happen? Is it natively on the brand site? Is it going to be on a third-party app like LTK, or is it going to be, on the actual social platforms? So that's how we see it evolving. And across the board, I would say, all three are better than the traditional model of affiliate or influencer because you have a consistent experience.
Yeah, I think what the market's telling us is people don't know how to choose what to buy, right? And so they'd rather kind of latch on to someone who they trust, even though they don't know that person. They feel like they know them, right? And they'd much rather follow that, especially when everyone's wallets are tighter, right? I mean, every dollar matters so much more than it did 2 years ago, right? And I think it's just a matter of feeling good about where we're spending our money, right? Rather than just clicking on an ad and hoping that it's going to be what you expected, right?
The social assurance and validation of having, somebody who you align with, for whatever reason, saying, yes, like this is what I'm into is really assuring. The really dumb anecdotal example I'll give is I'm trying to buy some furniture for my place. And, I don't do this all the time. I don't have the confidence to spend, $200 on a bedside table and, feel like it's not going to look stupid when it gets here. So I got to text 6 of my friends to make sure, they don't think it's ugly. It would be a lot better of an experience if the, brands that I was trying to shop from had a curated experience of, these creators think this product, and this product all work together. It's really, really hard for people to, have confidence in their own taste without having somebody else basically say, this is what I think is cool. And you're kind of part of my group.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that consumers they just won't spend their money if they feel like they're overwhelmed with too many things to choose from, right? I mean, I think that's what we're seeing right now. But so how does it work natively on the brand's e-commerce site? Is it kind of like a influencer / creator curated collection page? Is it just completely hidden? You can only get to it from like that creator's socials. How does that work?
Think of this as a new e-com page that is unique to every creator that you want to work with. They're created automatically. And really what happens when a creator signs up for a program, they'll be sent to a product picker where they choose all their favorite products. The page consolidates all of their social media and all their content into one place, and they'll have a place to kind of write their profile and things like that. So it's a little bit further than just a collection page, which I think Revolve pioneered with their creator program a few years back. This consolidates. It's really a influencer storefront trying to sell to you. That's got their profile, got their content, got their collections and favorite products all in one place. That really it makes them the sales associate and tries to make the conversion really, really easy. The experience for creators is simple. They get their page sent to them, and then they can pick products, edit their profile, edit their content, things like that. So really, really straightforward process, and it works pretty well at scale.
So essentially, not only are you as a consumer or user coming to that page seeing products that they themselves are interested in, but you're also seeing all of the content they created around those products as well.
And really that, the content should be associated with the products. You want to have the, just like a typical product detail page on an e-com site, you want to have the, the validation, the UGC, all of that stuff around, the stock images and kind of how it all works. So we combine all of that into one place, show how the influencer is wearing it in the wild, so to speak, next to their favorite products, all of those sorts of things, just to make a really, cohesive experience. This is how you rock it.
What about like the PDP? Does that change at all? Are there specific PDPs that are different for those products that they handpick?
PDPs have been curated and designed and perfected over years and years for most major brands. And so, while we have the, certainly the capability to kind of modify and adjust and kind of enhance that experience, what we've experienced the most is you can almost think of the influencer storefront as the PLP, and you can see all the products in there, but we're going to send them to the PDP as the actual conversion page, just because, the e-commerce person is really, really excited and really kind of tied to what they built. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be, pervasive for the next 5 years. I just think, it's kind of one piece at a time for brands, and, they understand, hey, having this as kind of the new shopping experience is going to get, more AOV. It's going to get more products selected. It's going to make a tighter, higher converting shopping experience. But, we still want them to get the exact same experience when they're choosing sizes and looking at, product details. We don't want there to be any potential gaps in how things are communicated that create customer service issues. So we've just found that brands hold on to that experience a little bit more tightly. Not to say they will continue to do that for, into the future, but currently at least our clients are still pretty attached to the PDP experience.
Yeah, I could see brands still being really attached to the PDPs and just how they present all of that information. But, if they're already sold by the time they get there, then it doesn't really matter, does it?
That's our pitch. So we're trying to get people to loosen the reins a little bit and do things like buy it now and really quick conversions. All that stuff is obviously possible. It's just, how loose do the brands want to make their grip on the experience?
Yeah, for sure. So I think like the first step, if a brand wanted to get started in this type of creator-led experience, would be to start developing those relationships, right? Are creators generally pretty open to this idea? Do they eat it up? Are they a little skeptical about it? And are they just earning commissions?
It starts with finding the right creators. Creators that add a lot of value tend to be very aligned with the brand. There's typically trust on both sides, and, the incentives are typically aligned, meaning that, whether or not it's a fully commissioned model, there should be some kind of variable component that gets both people excited about the same thing. So I think, picking your creator starts, with having some of those first principles and making sure you've got a lot of alignment with your, the people that you're partnering with. Let's assume that you do have good creators that you've got some alignment with, and they're good partners for the brand. What we've found is the creators are exceptionally excited and very, very passionate about this shopping experience, because they know this is going to lead to more conversions. It's ultimately going to drive, more money with them. Creators are smart. And so they also understand that having commission and variable components of a partnership literally will make them more money. A brand, if you reduce the brand's risk, they are willing to pay you more. So I think creators understand all those things. And if you have aligned creators, they understand that some kind of e-com led experience, whether it's our tool or someone else's tool, is going to drive more conversions. It's going to make them more money. And then we've had creators get that very, very quickly and become very, very passionate in terms of wanting to drive value out of their storefronts and providing feedback and asking for customizations. An aligned creator is going to be very excited about this, and they're going to work very, very, very hard to make sure it's an experience that they love.
Yeah, I agree that alignment is super, super crucial. I mean, it has to be in line with your brand. Their values need to be in line with your brand, and they actually have to be excited about what it is that they're creating content for, right? I know a lot of brands out there are probably thinking, man, I would love to work with these creators on a commission-only basis. But to add to what you said, I think there has to be some give and take there, right? Because it's not, and I've heard many brands say this, other podcast hosts talk about this really recently, like, this is changing the game. Brands are only going to pay commission on affiliate sales. They're going to treat influencers just like affiliates. And that got me thinking, like, well, that's pretty cool, but it's super one-sided, right? I mean, why would you ask a creator to put all of their time and resources on the line to hopefully move product for you? Like, they got to eat too. I think what you're saying is like some sort of like flat fee or upfront, payment to the creator, and then a variable earning model on top of that.
Yeah, I like to, you touched on a lot of really important concepts, and I'll introduce one more concept. I like to say, brands got to figure out their creator market fit, which is, what creators are you going to be able to work with in a model that scales, and how are you going to be able to scale them, and what's that model going to be? So once we figure out, every brand's got to understand their creator market fit's going to be a little bit different. That said, all the concepts that you just talked about are really important. Creators are going to be able to work more if the model was 100% variable, because, brands are the ones that are ultimately, creating that demand, and they would pay more if, there was no risk associated with it. They would literally be able to pay more per transaction if there was no risk associated with it. So obviously the brand wants a variable model, and in theory, that would be better for getting all creators paid more. Now, the reality is, creators work very, very hard, to kind of build their audiences and kind of build their value. And they've got an inventory, right? They can't put out 25,000 pieces of content every single day. They've got an inventory, and they've got expectations for what their finances are going to be. And if you move to a completely variable model, that creates, an unacceptable amount of risk for the creator. So, there's an equilibrium that every brand needs to kind of figure out for themselves. A brand would prefer a entirely variable model, which gets everybody paid the most, but that creates an unacceptable amount of risk for the creator. Everybody's going to kind of find their balance, and typically it's a pretty simple formula. If you're a larger creator, you're going to be a little bit closer to, you're getting a larger flat fee. If you're a smaller creator, you're going to be more excited about variable, because that's kind of the audience that you built at this point.
So we've talked about a lot of like do's, but what about some don'ts? What are some things that, from your experience and your customers' experience, that brands should be avoiding as they approach this new type of e-commerce?
It kind of varies a little bit for every brand. At the highest level, I would, establish your first principles of your creator program. There should be a lot of trust and alignment there. And generally, I would say focus on longer term partnerships. I think if you can do those three things, it's kind of hard to screw up very badly. If there's a lot of alignment and, incentives and kind of trust and all those things, it's hard to do a bad job. I would say tactically, where brands screw up, there's probably one or two main places. You can go to an influencer conference, and some people will be talking about the incredibly detailed briefs they put together. But I think the predominant sentiment in the industry is that there's a reason why you're marketing through creators and not through your owned and operated pages. And that's because they understand their audiences better than you do. Typically speaking, whether it's picking products for people or telling them exactly what to make their content, like, kind of less is a little bit more. And you want the creator to curate their own content and their own products and all those things that fit their audience really, really well, kind of take your hands off the reins a little bit. So I'd say that's kind of one, more common prevailing concept that I see.
Yeah.
The other one is you need to figure out what your creator model is going to be, do some experimentation, do things that don't scale at the beginning, and figure out, how are you going to win and what's your creator market fit going to be. But once you understand that, know what your creator model is, and then have the courage to say no to people that don't fit that. We see so many brands that, hey, like I can, send people monthly $100 credits or, this, that, this is what the arrangement, it's going to be a 10% commission and you're going to get access to these products and you're going to do X, Y, and Z. Like they know that's their model, but then they see somebody they kind of like and, that influencer or creator negotiates a little bit harder and they'll make an exception for it. And the problem is when you make those exceptions, the bandwidth that costs your team is going to be, at the expense of, 10 to potentially 100 creators that would have just said yes to the model. And so the biggest mistake we see with scale is, understand your model, have confidence that people are going to, benefit a lot from your model. And you've got something that works for both sides, and then just pursue people that, agree with your model and are excited about your model. Because the more exceptions you create, the harder it's going to be to manage and ultimately, put up big numbers with your program. So those are the two most common things that we see as mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, talking about scalability, like consistency and like how you pay your creators and how you manage those relationships, I could see coming into play and being really, really important for that. But I wanted to add on something to what you said about letting the influencer create their own content and not giving them too many guidelines. Like you said, they know their audience so extremely well, but also their audience knows them very, very well, right? They're going to sniff out that it's an ad and that it was all staged, and that's not going to help your sales. I mean, everyone knows when they're watching a creator like that they're promoting products, but as the viewer, you like to think that there's a lot of alignment and they're just pushing it because it's something they actually believe in. But the second they go out of how they normally would approach, product placement and talking about this new thing, and if it doesn't feel natural, it's going to flop.
Exactly right. There are exceptions. If you're a supplements brand and you've got FDA or whatever requirements, you might have to maintain more control over the actual message.
Right,
so
right.
There's going to be exceptions like that. And there's going to be exceptions where, let's say if you got off your first principles of I'm going to find creators that are super aligned with the brand. If you don't know these people, you might have to exert more. You're doing a short-term campaign and you're going for a lot of awareness. You might have to exert, more control over what they're going to say because they don't understand your brand very well and they're not going to represent it well. But if you, find the right creators and kind of build your program from the correct first principles, less is almost always more in terms of, guidance and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was mostly referring to like handing them a script and telling them how to do it and how to create the content with like this vicious outline, right?
When can you not tell that happens?
Guidelines are important, right? Like give them some do's and don'ts, like things they should not say or do and things that they should say or do, like just to make sure it like aligns with your brand. Like you said, like make sure that alignment's there, but some guidelines there I think are also important.
100%. Everybody can tell when it's, authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. People can sniff it out from a mile away, and it's a big turnoff, right? Like you might change. It could hurt the influencer's reputation as well. So Gary, what would you say your secrets to scale are?
I think that, let's say the bottleneck with, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a digital marketer or you're a teacher or whatever it is, like your bandwidth is never going to scale. And, with that, and generally speaking, any of those professions or really any profession in the world, people are naturally optimistic and passionate and, they're going to always kind of take on more than they can actually tackle. And so, technically what that means is everybody's got a list of crap that they're not going to get all the way through. And so the way that I manage scaling is, when I have my list of stuff that I'm not going to be able to get all the way through, the stuff that typically floats to the top and the balls that I do not drop are all related to people. I understand that I don't scale, but if you hire people that are really passionate and they're excited about the work that you do, they do. There's going to be more of them, and it infinitely scales you. So, the things that we don't drop the ball on are making sure our team is really happy, making sure that we're addressing their needs, making sure that we're solving and their problems and unblocking them. I think that principle is pretty important.
And I would say, influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, I mean, that's such a very important part of scaling any e-com business right now, right? Because low access to capital, probably not a lot of money to hire a big in-house content team, right? So you're probably limited there, or there's at least a bottleneck happening there, I guarantee it. Well, why not just trade some off the top and work with creators as contractors and pay them a commission on sales in most cases after a certain threshold. I think we're going to see brands double down on that going into 24.
I've heard some very smart people kind of take that and take it one step further and basically say, brands that are being built in 24, it doesn't really make sense to not have an important creator on the cap table.
Oh yeah.
It is already becoming kind of the primary distribution channel for really any product and the primary source of inspiration for any consumer. You need to have highly aligned creators be part of the business, and making them really passionate about the work that you do is going to be really paramount. So I fully agree with that, and bringing in creators and making them happy should be an important part of really starting any business at this point.
Yeah, and whether they like it or not, or believe it or not, e-com businesses are really, they're technology businesses and they're media companies, right? And those two come together to form what we call e-commerce, in my opinion. I'd say retail's probably last on the list.
Retail still needs a brand identity, but they have, there's a whole other kind of group of reasons why they win. So we're probably speaking a little bit more to D2C businesses, but you can to a lesser extent kind of lump them in the same category.
Well, cool, man. Appreciate you coming on the show. You had some awesome insights and opinions to share. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like the audience to know?
I would say there's a couple of things, that we really talk about internally. Figuring out incentives between all the different parties with your creators is really, really important to us. Creators, in terms of our world that we live in, getting them aligned with, as much variable comp as possible typically is leading to the best outcomes. So just putting a point of emphasis on that. And then also just kind of, emphasizing also that brands really need to understand, their creator market fit, finding the right types of creators for their brand, and making sure it's a really organic relationship. All the customers that we've worked with, we've got some customers that aren't even necessarily the biggest household names, but they've put a lot of time into those things. And they've built, affiliate programs that will sell millions and millions of dollars a year with really, really aligned creators. So I'd say those should be two guiding principles for anybody building a program.
Awesome, man. Well, what's a great way for anyone listening to get in touch with you?
I would say I'm most active on LinkedIn. So anybody that wants to, shoot me a message on LinkedIn, it's, /GaryUGC. Always happy to engage there. Or if you want to check out LoudCrowd.com, plenty of ways for you to get in touch with me via that channel.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll be sure to link that up in the show notes. And thank you again, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Tanner. Really appreciate it.